I have an ice cream cone.
Enjoy your ice cream.
Delicious.
We're back with more Nerd Legion, and we are diving into one of the most talked about shows recently. If you guys aren't familiar, because it happens in the mysterious black box of Apple TV
Seriously.
Plus, which, I mean, I feel like after Severance and Foundation and Silo and all of these sci-fi shows, I mean, Apple TV has been very dedicated to science fiction recently, which I
respect that. Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that they lurk behind their brand, right? So it's like even when I try to sign into Apple TV, I don't use any Apple products. So they're like, we're going to send this code to one of your devices. And I'm like, I had devices a long time ago, but I haven't for years. And they're like, do you want to do a different method? And I'm like, yeah, send it to my regular phone. Just send it. Just, you didn't need to pretend I had Apple devices like Apple. We've been over this. It's over. I'm not using your devices, just send the code to my phone number. Give it up.
You know what else is annoying, DoA, is that I can't Chromecast Apple TV to my TV because it doesn't play well with the Google infrastructure.
Shocking.
So yes, there are many annoying things about Apple TV Plus.
Yes, the service is,
but they do make good content.
The service makes it hard for people to use. Anyway, Apple TV. Difficult to use, but they have good content once you actually, get through the labyrinthine access.
And speaking of good products, all the ones that do not have a difficult to access
much easier to use,
you guys should head on over to intotheam.com/LFN. And why should you do that? Well, they offer great men's apparel. I'm wearing one of the shirts right now. Oh, so is DoA. He's ready. They offer graphic tees, but also tons of other men's apparel. So it could be polos, chinos, bomber jackets, workout clothes.
I just got a couple of their Henleys because it's getting a little bit colder down here in LA, which I know is a strange thing to say, but it does get down to like the 60s sometimes. So you do want a long sleeve once in a while. Oh, the 60s.
So yeah, they offer basically anything you could possibly want, including unbranded t-shirts without graphics on them if you want a more plain style. So they've got lots and lots of stuff. So if you guys head on over there, they are currently doing their Black Friday sale, which is up to 60% off of everything. And if you use code LFN, you get an additional 10% off. Look at that magic. So you could be getting up to 70% off. They offer free shipping to many places. They offer shipping worldwide, free shipping to many places worldwide if you hit their minimum orders. So head on over to intotheam.com/LFN. Help support Nerd Legion in the show. Thank you. All right. So Pluribus.
Yes.
This show has been getting a lot of praise. It's made by Vince Gilligan, who originally comes from like the X-Files guys, and then, of course, rose to prominence with Breaking Bad and then later Better Call Saul. He has signed on with Apple TV Plus to do this new science fiction show, which is kind of like an X-Files premise. So it feels sort of like he's returning to his roots.
Yeah, I can see that.
With Pluribus. And basically the concept of Pluribus is this. There is, and obviously we're going to talk about spoilers. We're going to talk about the first 3 episodes here because episode 4 has not come out as the time of this recording. It will be out by the time this show is out. Just the reality of editing and recording this show, guys. So we will only be talking about the first 3 episodes. But I think, though, we will probably do another episode when this season ends because I think we probably both liked and are interested in this.
Yeah, I really liked the first 3 episodes. So I'm in it for the long haul. I definitely want to circle back and finish this once the series has aired completely. It's just nice when you're watching something and like it makes you want to pay attention. Like we live in a world of many different screens of many different sizes around us all the time. And a lot of shows I feel like kind of push me away from the main screen to like, there's that temptation. I really try to close everything else off and focus on whatever I'm watching. But few shows actually make me want to stick with it, and this show absolutely did. So yeah, I love the first 3 episodes. I'm really looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah. And so the premise is very interesting, very promising, although
Yeah.
it is really, after the first 3 episodes, too early to draw any kinds of conclusions about this
Sure.
show, I feel like, because it has been basically all setup. We know the setup is good, but ultimately it's the payoff that needs to happen in order for this to be a good show. However, knowing Vince Gilligan's other work, less concerned about that. Let's just say,
Yeah.
the man knows how to ramp up epic storylines.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great world building that's happened. We've established in the first 3 episodes, like you said, the premise, but it's done a very good job of establishing what the limitations of all the people involved are, what can us do, what can our protagonists do, what can some of the other people we're going to talk about do. And so now we've kind of got the framework set up with the first 3 episodes. Now I think we're ready to kind of get into like, all right, now people do things, right? Now we kind of move the plot forward from coming to grips with how the world has become to where will we take things from there. So yeah, I mean, again, I think the show's in good hands, right? Obviously, I trust Vince Gilligan. Breaking Bad was great. Better Call Saul was great. This show seems to be kind of like following in those footsteps of a very compelling main character, a very compelling situation the character is in, and then just very well shot too. Very interestingly shot compared to a lot of other things right now.
So basically, the premise of the show is this, if you haven't heard about it yet, and that is that there is a signal that is received in the Very Large Array, which is a series of radio telescopes in New Mexico. May recognize it from Contact, of which the beginning of this film is very, very similar to Contact, if you're familiar with that movie, in that they receive the alien signal from far away, and they're trying to decide what it is. We are given a very fun montage opening sequence of the scientists gathering around and trying to decide and discuss what everything is. We basically have a realization that the sequence that is coming in is actually an RNA sequence. So it has like 4 different tones, which are correspond to C, U, A, and G in RNA. So the military who receives this begin to put together these RNA molecules, and they start testing them on various living creatures, so that it is actually genetic code that is being transmitted across the stars. And so once they start, they spend 8 months basically not being successful, until all of a sudden one of the rats they've been testing it on gets sick. They finally find the right rat. That rat then bites one of the scientists, and it spreads to humans, and then it spreads to everywhere in the world. What does this genetic code do? It basically creates a hive mind, a shared consciousness amongst everybody. And there are only 13 people in the world.
11, and then they find one more. Unlike they say they found one more. I thought it was 11.
Yes. So there's let's put it this way. There's 13 people. So there were 11 plus the main character. Yeah. Then they found a 12th plus the main character. So it's 13 in total. People in the world are not affected by this as it spreads through saliva. We're led to believe air transmission because planes are flying over. And there is a biological imperative of the people who are affected by the RNA to spread it as part of this hive mind. So they all work together in order to spread it to absolutely everybody. And the only people left are these 13 people who are actually immune to the hive mindification of humanity. So our main character, Carol, is a romance slop author, which is very funny, who is kind of self-hating, knows she's a hack, and she is completely unaffected. And so it's her kind of coming to grips with the death of her girlfriend / wife. Not really clear which one it is.
Sort of relationship, yeah.
They've
been together for a long time, but not important, I suppose. But yeah.
Yeah. And also because some people, we found out later, 800 million people actually die of the RNA. So it kills a large chunk of the world's population. And then she is left in a world where the hive mind is very peaceful. Now, they say that they are working on a scientific breakthrough so that they can integrate the final 13 people kind of against their will, whether they want to or not, because they say it's a biological imperative for them to get everybody within the hive mind. But until that breakthrough occurs, basically they are left with the entire world as servants to these 13 people and almost given godlike powers, effectively. So the hive mind will give them anything they want, like literally anything at all. We find out later on that they would even give them nuclear weapons if they wanted it, which is very funny.
If you truly wanted a nuclear weapon, we would weigh the pros and cons with you. We would explain that it would be very destructive.
Yes or no?
Ultimately, yes. Wouldn't necessarily feel good about it, but we would move heaven and earth to make you happy, Carol. Would you like an atom bomb?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Because they just want to make these people happy. There's no real threat to these
They can't
people.
hurt anyone. That's a yeah.
They actually can't hurt anyone or any animals. So they basically are forcing all the people to go vegetarian, we find out. If the autonomous people kill an animal, apparently the hive mind will cook it for them. But otherwise, they're happy to deliver your favorite foods to you, provide people to have sex with if you want that, as is
that one dude.
Get you Air Force One to fly around the world with if
that
you
is
want
great.
it. It's very funny. It's a great premise, and it really is executed well. And so what we've been dealing with the first 3 episodes, kind of the main character Carol working through all of this, the other autonomous people who speak English all getting together. There are 6 of them in total who speak English. And so they're all getting together to have conversations without the hive mind around, and trying to figure out where their place in this world is and whether the hive mind will be integrating them eventually upon some kind of scientific breakthrough against their will.
Right.
So it is very interesting philosophical concept, and obviously also plays with the concept of the pandemic, which I think is very clever. It is much more interesting to have this show in a post-COVID world than a pre-COVID world, because you get to see a lot of, people's reaction to these kind of diseases, or a what-if scenario with a different kind of pathogen that is spreading. So really fun overall, and just very well executed.
Yeah, and it does that great thing that Vince Gilligan seems to do in his shows, which is produce a very effective dark comedy. Which Breaking Bad was a dark comedy. Better Call Saul was as well. This is too, where it's like a very serious premise, and there's lots of scary, serious things happening, but there's so much humor, like good humor packed into these episodes too. Some intentional, some not intentional. There's a lot of good intentional stuff, but the unintentional one that got me in the first episode was where, like, when she walked into the hospital and like everyone in the waiting room was just like shaking and stuff like that, because people go through this sort of like seizure phase when they're being inoculated with this virus or whatever, and then they're fine, or they're not, but most people are fine. But she walks into this hospital because she's trying to get help for her partner, and then everyone's in there like shaking, and for some reason, do you remember the Harlem Shake? And like,
yep,
that came back to me in that moment. I just heard the Harlem Shake. Like, we should do an edit here where it's like, do an edit with like her walking up to the hospital entry, and then like have the music match when she opens the door and it has that wide shot. It just hits the Harlem Shake, and everyone's just doing this. It'd be perfect. That edit would be perfect. I'm telling you. Hopefully we see it right now. But yeah, so for that entire first episode, every time we saw people shaking, I was just like, this is like just the greatest Harlem Shake video of all time, Nobody does anyone remember that?
It's possible he was inspired by that.
Possibly. But like that's the thing I thought of. And I don't know if that was intentional, but it made the first episode much funnier, which again, it's not a funny situation, but just the presentation of it made me laugh. But then there's just a lot of other like just good comedy stuff in the show. Like, she asks for a grenade as like a joke and they bring her one, which causes problems.
Please, be careful with that.
Right, like you would give me a real hand grenade.
Carol, if we may.
And, that leads to the really funny conversation about like what they would give her, going up to like the one guy trying to avoid saying he would give her a nuclear weapon if she asks for it, but ultimately saying yes, he would. So it's just, you kind of...
Shout out to that actor, by the way,
Oh.
who absolutely crushes that
He did
scene.
a great
He's
job.
very funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, but it's the entity of us is what they kind of call themselves, which is all of humanity basically now, aside from these 13 people, is such an interesting character because it's benevolent in a way, but yet it's sort of like inevitable that it's gonna come for you, right? It's very upfront with the fact that it's going to, but in the meantime, it's gonna give you whatever you want, and it's never gonna hurt you. And and then the other aspect to it is that it's vulnerable to our protagonist in that Carol, in that if she loses her patience and like yells at it, that sort of emotional assault kind of short circuits the hive mind temporarily and causes them all to go into seizures again, which again, like the first time it happens, they tell her later that like 8 million people died or something like that. 11 million people died. Yeah. And so,
because obviously when they go into
Right.
seizures, these people might be
Driving
driving
cars,
cars
flying
or
planes.
doing dangerous
Yeah.
flying planes, because even though no individual has autonomy or even knowledge, so humanity is just a shared pool. So theoretically, shared pool of information. So theoretically, anybody could be an airline
Yeah.
pilot, right?
everybody knows everything all
because
the time.
They just,
Yeah.
yeah, speak any language. So it's a very fun concept. But basically, all these people are working towards a mysterious goal. Which
Yeah,
we
we'll
will
speculate
get
on
into.
that
And
later,
That's the
yeah.
big. That's the big question of the show: is what is the hive mind doing now? Because we know what it's doing at the start, which is that it is spreading this disease as fast as it possibly can, and you see these coordinated efforts, of the people who are infected to infect other people, and then to try and get as many people as possible as quickly as possible, including sending samples of their spit in petri dishes all over the country. We suspect later on that they're like crop dusting people with it, with the planes that are
Right.
flying in formation over Albuquerque right before where Carol is. She lives in Albuquerque in New Mexico because Vince Gilligan, man, just loves New Mexico.
I guess so. Like I'm like, oh, we're back in Albuquerque again. All right, what an interesting town this has become.
I love New Mexico too. However, I do not love Albuquerque. Why can't it be Santa Fe? Somewhere nicer.
I don't know
Anyway,
how you make three shows that take place in Albuquerque and then not include the Weird Al song Albuquerque in any of them. Like, as far as I'm aware,
a classic.
like that's a crime, Vince. Come on.
So, yes, I mean, New Mexico is beautiful and it suits his directing style very well. So I appreciate it as a New Mexico enjoyer myself. But in any case, in Albuquerque, you see these planes flying over, in parallel lines. The implication is that they are dispersing the virus into the air and that it's affecting the people underneath them. So they've taken control of the American military, basically, to spread it as fast as possible. I do appreciate, DoA, that they even talk about how they spread it to the nuclear submarines, because she asked very specifically, what about the nuclear submarines? Because remember, Navy submarines can be underwater for months at a time. So in theory, these people would not be affected. What about the people like on the Antarctic station that are cut off? All these questions where if you've played the classic mobile game Pandemic, you know that Madagascar is very annoying to infect.
But I love that they
So throwback.
I love
for you.
that they address all of the inevitable fan questions right away in the first 3 episodes. Like
Yeah.
the whole killing animals to eat it kind of thing. They have a whole conversation about that. Oh, we're not going to kill any animals, not even snails. No, not even snails. What if I kill the animal myself? And then they're like, well, yeah, then we would like cook it for you, you know.
Okay.
So I love that, like I
great.
love that they dive
Yeah.
into like what the inevitable fan theories are going to be, and they
Yes.
head them off at the pass, you know.
I really appreciate that they spell out the rules
Yeah,
to the
it's
universe.
great.
So the answer to the question of how did they get the nuclear submarines and, you know, all the super isolated places is that they say that they targeted them first, because those are, you know, and they don't have to explain more than that about how they did it, but they targeted them first because they figured those would be the places that they needed to infect first before they went for the broader population, which is true. It's just like, okay, that makes sense. And it also makes sense because we see this happening in an American military lab. So they would have access in theory to people who would have clearances in order to get this. So what I'm saying is the world building is very plausible in this situation, which I appreciate. And they do, you know, some people might want you to gloss over that stuff, but I do think, you know, the main character shows intelligence by asking these kinds of questions. And then because the hive mind will basically, as far as we can tell, just tell the truth at all possible times. More on that potentially later. Who knows how much it can be trusted. But because it appears to tell the truth, you know, you feel confident that it's giving answers that make sense. So it's all very
It doesn't really have a reason to lie, you know. It's I mean, obviously there's probably things that are being kept from our characters, but you know, as far as like that kind of stuff goes, we don't have any reason to believe that it wouldn't be truthful, because it's just like, well, this happened, you know, it's already done with. Why should we hide how we did it, you know? The only thing with the world that bothers me right now is that we have too many people, you know, a few days into it, still in like their DHL uniform or their, you know, like TGI Fridays uniform or something. And it's like, all right, I get that it's funny to see, you know, the TGI Fridays waiter flying a plane or something, right? Or like the DHL guy is a medical doctor now, because everyone can do everything. Everyone has all knowledge, right? But like 3-4 days into it, people would have to start changing clothes, right? And there's no reason to keep your job clothes on for that long. So that was one thing that that's the one thing that kind of annoys me. It's like, all right, we get that it's kind of quirky and funny to see this, but like that, you know, why would this hive mind keep putting the person in their work clothes instead of just regular clothes, you know, a few days into it? Because they clean themselves. We know that, right? They do whatever, they do the normal things that humans have to do to stay healthy and functioning and all that. They eat, they clean themselves, they sleep, right? So like, why would they insist on wearing their work uniforms all the time? Maybe there's going to be an in-universe reason for that, but until there isn't, I feel like it's just being done for like ironic effect. And 3 episodes in, that joke is kind of played out, you know? So that's the only one I'm kind of keeping my eye on, you know?
Yeah, and I think where this show is successful too is that we really only have a character. Well, there's 2 characters. There's the hive mind and there's Carol, and we get introduced to some other 5 of the other people who can speak English, who remain autonomous, but they're not very well developed. And it seems like this character Carol is going to be very alone, at least at the start of this, which I think is really interesting because Vince Gilligan also makes her deeply unlikable. So, you know, I have to credit Vince Gilligan is excellent at making annoying women. You know, we got Skylar in Breaking Bad. Carol is incredibly annoying in this show. I understand that she's grieving and she's going through trauma.
Going through
she's
a lot
an angry
right now.
person, so that's how she's processing it. But she is just insanely annoying. But it's not in a way that makes you want to stop watching it. It really does. She's a character that you're interested in all the same, because she starts. I mean, the show starts in a very funny way, which is that she's on a book tour for her newest piece of fantasy romance slop that she is self-loathing because she understands that her books are trash and that her fans are dumb. And so she has to travel America meeting dumb people who love her, and she hates it. I mean, she hates it. She wants to write a serious novel, and her girlfriend / wife is trying to get her to do that, the book that she's been writing for numerous years, but she's been incredibly successful as a best-selling author with this fantasy slop. And so that's her kind of life. She has a, beautiful house in Albuquerque, good life, but it's at the cost of potentially her own sanity. And also, her alcoholism, which we realize is a problem because her car has a breathalyzer in it, which means that she has previously gotten a DUI. So she's previously gotten a DUI, so she has to breathalyze before her car will. She has a device that has to breathalyze before her car will go on, and then we kind of see her also spiraling into alcoholism in the show itself, is in a response to the high stress situation that she's in.
Yeah, and I mean, you say annoying, and yeah, these are people that I wouldn't necessarily want to hang out with, but I feel like he has a knack for making very genuine people too. Like the way people react to like crises and trauma, you'd love to think everybody stays calm and does the right thing and everything like that, but chances are more likely that they're just going to freak out and do something stupid when confronted with some major crisis incident. So I feel like Skylar in Breaking Bad may come off as annoying, but also feels like a very natural reaction to everything she went through too. And I think the Carol thing as well, like these aren't necessarily people we want to like spend time with ourselves, but I think they're true to the way a lot of people tend to be. And so I respect that, right? Where it's not even like the flawed hero. They just aren't heroes. They're just kind of regular people, to a certain extent, that are either pushed into extraordinary situations or kind of become extraordinary over time, incrementally, like Walter White in Breaking Bad. Starts as a very normal person and then, kind of levels up over time to becoming a supervillain, basically. So yeah, I like where Carol has started in the same way, where it's kind of hard to watch them, but you kind of enjoy it too because it feels legit, right? So I like that.
Yeah, she's just a miserable human being.
It's a very believable premise, right?
She's very self-loathing, very miserable, and it requires some really good writing and some really good acting by Rhea Seehorn, who stars as Carol, to do this. Because I mean, Rhea Seehorn absolutely crushes this role, and you have to have her be super good and super believable because she's the only character with a personality, because otherwise it's just a hive mind. So if she is terrible, this show just falls on its face instantly. Yeah. She cannot be bad. She has to be really good, and she is.
Carol, you may find this hard to believe, but yesterday was the greatest day in the history of humanity. Helen thought so too.
No, Helen is not one of you.
She joined us before she passed. She's gone, but all of her thoughts, her memories, they're right here. Should we tell you how much she loved you?
You bunch of ghouls! You are a goddamn bunch of grave-robbing psychopaths! You are the reason she is dead! And now you're gonna speak for her? Fuck you! Fuck every single one of you!
Oh, hi, I didn't see you come in. This message is sponsored by Raycon. I just picked up their Essential Open earbuds, and I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of earbuds in general, mostly because of the way they stick inside my ears. But these, that just float comfortably above my ear canal, have been really great for things like working out, for things like going for a walk and making sure I'm aware of my surroundings on the dangerous LA crosswalks. So they've really been great to use. And now you've got a great opportunity to pick them up with 30% off on their Black Friday sale. The audio quality is great. They connect easily to all the devices I would like them to connect to, and I have not had to charge them more than once since getting them, which is kind of amazing. I really love them, and I think you're going to love them too. Black Friday, as I said, is just around the corner, and Raycon products are 30% off site-wide. From everyday essentials to the latest releases, it's the perfect time to upgrade your sound and get ahead on gifting. These early deals won't last long, so shop now before they're gone. Go to buyraycon.com/nerdlegionopen to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. Yeah, everyone in the show so far has been really good, and I really respect the people that have to take on the role of like us, which is again the hive mind, because you have to kind of put some individuality in there because these are still individual people, but you have to sort of like act in a way that is showing that you are not all there all the time. You are kind of everywhere. So it's a really interesting concept. And I just love, I love what people are doing with it. The other people they bring in, the other people that speak English and have not been affected by it, are all very real. And the funny thing is that like, there's a comment like, well, we won't be able to protect you from each other, which you're like, oh yeah, not all these people might be on board with the whole, let's try to take humanity back thing. And in fact, we find out that Carol's really the only one out of them all, because all the other ones have family. that have become part of this hive mind, but are still with them, so they still have their families, right? Even though it's a little bit odd, but they seem okay with it. And then the one guy, I'm trying to remember his name, the one guy who just decides to go full hedonism and hijack Air Force One and fill it with women is he has no interest in changing things back to the way
his name
they are.
is Kumba Diabate.
Oh, okay.
He's from
Yeah.
Mauritania, which is a Western African country, but he's
Yeah.
hilarious.
It's so funny that this guy would be
and
like,
that's
"Get me
another
Air Force One."
incredibly that's an incredibly believable
Totally, yeah.
character, because he's just like, you know, he's just gonna be a hedonist. He's like, what plane should I get? Air Force One. Also, fill it with hot women who are gonna fuck me, and you know, I'm just gonna eat and drink delicious food. I mean, frankly, DoA, he's got it right, because if you're in that situation, what else are you gonna do, man?
I wish for Zoja to accompany me. She suggested I ask. I believe she needs your blessing.
Who's Zosha?
Your chaperone.
Accompany you for what? Oh, Jesus Christ.
What can I say? In the past day, I've spent time with her, gotten to know her, learned her name. I feel we made a connection.
Can I ask a question? What is wrong with you? Is it a medical condition that it can't just stay in?
I apologize. Clearly, I've struck a nerve.
Huh.
If she is your companion,
She's not my anything. None of them are. They are a bunch of brain-damaged incompetents, but you keep sticking your dick in them.
Literally, what else are you gonna? You might as
The
well
show
just
makes
do all
you
those
wonder
things,
that, right?
because
Like, I don't know if I wouldn't go full hedonism, but I would probably go from I would just want to probably like chat with the hive mind all day, every day, and try to like figure things out, you know, while secretly plotting to maybe change things back. Although honestly, at this point in the show, obviously this is all being done for nefarious purposes down the road. You know, I have ideas about what this all might mean long term, which I'll love to theory craft on to see if we're right later. But like, you know, right now it's like, well, you know, if we assume for a moment that there is no alien entity coming to harvest whatever humanity is setting up for them, which there definitely is, I will guess, you know, assuming that there's none of that happening, then, you know, humanity as an organism, I mean, humanity is kind of already an organism that is sort of like grown and you know, grown more intelligent in a way, and, you know, sort of like spread over time. So humanity kind of already is doing this stuff. So if it all becomes genuinely one big hive mind for humanity, the species, you know, is that a bad thing necessarily? And I don't know. I mean, losing individuality sucks, but if we're talking about humanity, the biological organism, you know, as far as success goes, this is probably the best thing to happen for it. So it's a really interesting kind of like philosophical thing, like you said, to think about.
also good ecologically for the Earth, one would assume,
Right.
because, you know, they apparently have, you know, stopped zoos and are trying to live in harmony with the rest of nature, as far as we can tell.
No war and no isms anymore, you know, like there's no need for money, you know, for economics in general, because, you know, everyone is just producing to feed everybody else, and you're all just one big hive mind, right? So it presents it in a way where, because they're so benevolent, you're like, maybe this isn't objectively the worst thing ever either. You know, I wouldn't want to be part of it, right? But at the same time, it's like, from an exterior look, you know, maybe it's not the worst thing for the planet, you know? So there is that aspect to it too. But of course, I would assume that, and I want to hear your theories on this too, but I would assume the natural thing to assume is that this code was sent by some sort of alien species. They're probably not out to just make the world, you know, make the universe a better place. You know, I would imagine that this is a way to pacify a planet's population to then prep them for the true invasion. You know, that's where my mind naturally goes, you know, but that almost seems too obvious. So I hope I'm wrong, but that would be the premise that a lot of other, you know,
here's the interesting thing that they need to explain. So it's coming from 600 light years away, but it's sending a genetic code of RNA that will apparently basically only infect humans, because we learned that they spend 8 months trying to infect other things or test this RNA, and it doesn't work until they get the right rat, which we could assume potentially has a mutation that allows it to cross over, for it to get sick and for it to cross over to people. But it doesn't happen with every rat, right? And so it's almost as though the aliens would know about the actual genetic makeup of humanity, which means that they would have to have been to Earth before, potentially.
Right. Well, that was the first thought I had when they were like talking at the very beginning about, this like if they were saying if they were just saying hello, why would it be so complex? And it's like a code. And I thought for a second I was like, oh, that means there's already aliens on Earth, and the signal isn't even for humans. It's for the sleeper agents for the aliens on Earth. But then it ended up being the RNA thing. But your point still stands.
The other thing is that there could have been in the past at some point.
She said there wasn't, though, right?
The,
Sosha said there weren't any aliens on Earth.
Yeah, but they could have in the past.
And she could be lying, too.
At some point. Yeah, sure. At some point previously, they also talk a lot about how it's not a signal bouncing off the moon, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the signal could not have been faked in some way. So it's also possible that this could have been somebody on Earth who had designed this genetic sequence, who was then transmitting it and faking where it's coming from to get the military to make it.
Maybe.
Right. So there's actually a lot of options that are on the table right now. But what's so intriguing is that for it to make sense from a scientific perspective, it couldn't just be aliens 600 light years away who had never been to Earth, who had never had an experience with humanity, because then they wouldn't know how to engineer a virus that would affect human DNA.
Right.
And we do know that it is specifically tailored to human DNA. So that is that's the real central question of the origin. And then the other question is, what is it doing now? Because now that it has infected everyone that it's possible to infect, why does it need to infect these last 13 people? Just as it's a biological imperative. That kind of makes sense if its goal is to dominate the world, that maybe it spends a little bit of extra time using the collective knowledge of humanity to overcome the last hurdle to affect these last 13 people.
Just wait out the clock.
That could have been
too.
engineered because what would have happened if there was still half the world's population that wasn't infected? Then it would be a legitimate biological imperative. So if it was programmed that way under these situations, it wouldn't necessarily have been designed to get the last 13 people, because that's obviously irrelevant in this scenario. But in other scenarios where it had not infected everybody yet, it could be very valuable if the goal is to take over. Right. But it has taken over now. So maybe that's stopping it. But the question is, and she never asks, which is weird, what is it doing now? What is
that question is going to be asked.
Game?
Yeah,
of course. But the question is, what is the end game of the virus? Is it like you're saying, DoA, to prepare for some sort of invasion, a la 3-body problem, right? Is it to, advance humanity to the point where it can contact the alien civilization for whatever reason? Here's, is the other civilization a hive mind that is looking for more knowledge, so it needs humanity to work together, stop fighting, to build spacecraft to travel to the other planet to join their hive mind? Is this like a Borg scenario, right? There's lots and lots of opportunities of what it could be, and I think that's what's fascinating about this show. And hopefully we get some really cool new sci-fi concepts that is not any of the things I've mentioned. I would like to be surprised by this.
My gut feeling tells me it's like, we're prepping for an alien invasion thing. But like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I trust that.
I think Vince Gilligan's clever, more clever than that. I would
agree.
really like
I
to
agree.
believe that.
But I'm gonna be worried about it until I'm proved wrong. I'll put it that way. But the question is, what else do you really do? Do you just have them eventually bring everybody into the hive mind and then do like a montage of how wonderful everything is, from then on? Do you, except for the lions who are mauling people, do you have the thing where it's like, it's a Borg type thing where they're just trying to prepare them to be part of the collective, essentially, it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes, and then our main character, Carol, it's like she clearly wants to act out against this hive mind, but these are still like people out there. She's legitimately doing things that kill millions of people. So there's the whole ethics with that too,
I mean, is it really killing millions of people though if their knowledge and experiences live on within the hive mind?
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder like where where does creativity go from here? Where does art go from here if everything is a hive mind,
Oh, it won't care.
Yeah,
about
exactly. Yeah, but that's sad, right? Like no more no more Sistine Chapels.
Well,
we're
I
not
mean,
getting
I
any
think
more
DoA,
of those
this
anyway.
raises a lot of contemporary questions about AI as well,
Yeah.
which is that if you actually think about AI art, it is drawing from the collective well of existing human art and repurposing those
It's not doing a very good
forms.
job.
And it isn't. But DoA, what would happen if you, and I'm sure we'll get to this, what would happen if one of these people asked the hive mind to make a television show, for example? What would that look
Yeah.
like?
I mean, there's hilarious like meta
Fascinating
sitcom
questions.
commentary kind of opportunities there. I hope she does. I hope like TV just like ends somehow and she's like, make me a television show. And then
I mean, I would have already done that if I was in this world. I would 100% be incredibly curious to see what kind of music, art, television shows, movies this
make
thing
it a
would
parody
make.
of Breaking Bad. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I think the exciting thing about this show is all the opportunity for stories, and I really just have no idea where they're going to go with it. She seems to be sort of like developing a friendship a little bit with this character Zosha, right, which is one of the hive mind, but she's also the individual that they send to her because she resembles the original female version of the main character in Carol's books, which is funny,
Funny.
which is funny, but
And also, by the way this comes about is in a brilliantly shot sequence where this woman in Tangiers in Morocco suddenly just decides to walk away, get on a giant cargo plane, fly to Albuquerque, shower up, make herself look amazing, and then go, because the hive mind decided that of all the people in the world, it was this one Moroccan
Yeah.
woman who was going to be the one who looked most like this character, because they downloaded this character from Carol's wife's mind before she died. And it's like, it's such a funny concept that all of a sudden this random woman would just be like, well, I know how to fly a giant like C-130 cargo plane now. I'm just going to go do this and be this representative to make her comfortable. It's both creepy and funny and very interesting.
I think the whole meta commentary on AI is very apt here too, because essentially it's Carol interacting with an AI now, right? And so it has all of this knowledge, but it doesn't really know how to apply it, with human logic, right? So that's like, when she says, "Bring me a grenade," just brings her a grenade. She's like, "You actually did that?" Like, I don't want a grenade, So it's like that kind of thing where it understands what a grenade is and understands she wants one, so it goes and grabs one, right? So it'll do, it does what you ask, but it doesn't always necessarily understand the nuance of the question and of the context around the question. So it is a lot like AI stuff, right? Like talking to Chat GPT or something like that, So it is going to be an interesting show to watch during this age where like everybody's just using AI now. It's inevitable, I mean, whether you like it or not, it is here to stay, and it's only going to get more prevalent in our lives. So you better start learning about it now, because if you don't, you're going to be behind. And so this show is kind of interesting to watch your chat with an AI and watch it respond, So very apt.
Yeah, and it obviously it just explores a lot of really interesting metaphysical concepts too. Like when she meets the other autonomous people, most of these other people have family members who have survived. One of the women from India has a kid, and Carol's absolutely right that it's not really her kid anymore, because she starts asking the kid questions about gynecology, and it's really funny. And the mom who's autonomous starts freaking out because it's the actual demonstration, but these people are in denial about what their family members are at this point in time.
There's a child present.
I'm sorry, Ravi. I apologize.
It's quite all right.
Tell me, Ravi, for a pelvic exam, what kind of speculum do you prefer? Metal or plastic?
What?
It would depend. Both have their uses.
No. But, I mean, you probably wouldn't do a palpation, right? Not with those tiny little fingers.
How dare you?
You know, it's no secret that most holiday gifts end up in a drawer or in the back of your closet or accidentally left at a cousin's house, but not Mint Mobile. Oh no, they are offering unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. That's their best deal of the year, aka a holiday gift you'll actually use every single day. You can get a 3, a 6, or a 12-month unlimited plan for just $15 a month, and that comes on Mint Mobile's high-speed data network, the largest in all the land. Of the nation anyway, at least. I wanted to make it sound more dramatic. You can also bring your current phone and number over to Mint too, and no contracts and no nonsense along with it. I've loved switching to Mint Mobile. I recommend you do it too. In the end, nobody wants socks. They want premium wireless for $15 a month, so go shop Mint Mobile unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/nerd. That's mintmobile.com/nerd. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. That's $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 35 gigabytes may slow down when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
Because they're not your family members anymore. They're just literally everyone.
Right. It's again, you know, it can be your family member if you want it to be, right? Because it can just use all of that information that it got from that person, but that, you know, individual sitting next to you is not that person anymore, you know? It can just kind of put on that mask for a time, you know? Which is cool. I do love the idea that you can kind of ask for anything and it delivers it. I feel like some of it's kind of pushing the bounds of believability when, like, the Sprouts scene kind of bothered me a little bit, where it's like she wants her grocery store back, and like within 30 seconds, there's all these semi-trucks pulling up with everything. Like, we were just told that they were storing all the food elsewhere to like start to aggregate and gather it all, you know, so it doesn't make sense that they'd be able to get everything exactly in the truck.
It's a great moment.
It's a great moment,
I think,
but
like,
it just happened a little bit too quick, and I was like, all right, I get the idea.
It had
but
to happen that
no, it
way
didn't.
for cinematic
No, it
reasons,
didn't.
right? Because
It could.
it did. Because it's a very well shot scene, and you want
She could have gone, wait 1 hour, and then it wouldn't have changed anything about the scene other than make it more believable. But the fact that it happened within 30 seconds kind of like kicked me out of it for a moment.
I suppose, but I'm willing to forgive that because the artistic license
Me
is
too.
so
It was a
good on
great
that
scene, but like you got to think about the little things like that too.
I think they are, and like I think that the immediacy of it, wait 1 hour, is not as surprising as the way it happens right now, and it's more proof that the AI/hive mind can do anything instantly. And yes, I agree that it is a little bit odd in the context of them explaining that they had kind of set up centralized distribution for food, because why would people need grocery stores when it can just deliver food to all of the individuals in the hive mind as they need it, right? But I found it really profound, because what's so funny about Carol in that scene is that Carol herself is saying, well, I like to do things by myself. I rely on myself. You know, I go out and do things. I'm very independent. But the funny part of that is, if she was going to a Sprouts, she was never very independent. She's not a farmer. She's not raising her own food. You know, it calls into question the mentality of independence in an industrialized world, because she's so convinced that she should just be able to go to this. And it's so different than getting the food just delivered to her, which we can all do with Instacart and Amazon Fresh and the push of a button these days. And how does walking into a grocery store, which is an artificial display of the bounties of the earth, more authentic, or it makes you more independent than just calling up the AI or pressing buttons on your phone and having it delivered anonymously to your door?
And it's
like, obviously there is no
and it's
difference.
also kind of like somewhat selfish for her to do that now too, because like she can't eat all of that food, and all that food isn't going to stay fresh for, you know, for her.
Well, I assume all the other people will just go and take the food.
Maybe, but
and
I
eat
thought
it
about
before
that
it
too.
Goes
It's
away,
like,
but it's less efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
though.
She's reducing the efficiency of the planet essentially, so which she's creating a lot more waste again. So that scene too kind of, I think, highlights the problems with humanity as well, that she represents, like,
sure, and also
waste
it
without
highlights
caring.
her own hypocrisy, because she criticizes, you know, she is out there criticizing Kumba for his excesses and his hedonism, and yet she requires this entire grocery store to be made for her personal use. It's it's no more or less hedonistic than what the other guy is doing, right?
It's just less flashy.
She's just trying to make herself feel better.
Yeah,
Yes.
if she wanted to really go out, she'd make them put together an Erewhon for her. It's like, I need my $20 smoothies. Erewhon.
Well, you see, Sprouts paid for the, paid for the.
I figured. There's a lot of product
obviously
placement
it couldn't be
here.
whole. It couldn't be Whole Foods, DoA, because that's owned by Amazon.
I know the next time I want to ship my DNA altering viruses, I'm going to choose GHL. Yeah.
The product placement is very funny in this show. It is really blatant. But the funniest thing is it's not usually in Apple TV Plus shows. It's like, let me get out my iPhone or my iPad. It's like DHL and Sprouts.
At least we're safe from
funny.
safe from anyone saying Bing it, at least in this show. We can be sure about that. However, I do find it funny that her friend like dropped her phone just like from the height of like basically chest high to the sidewalk, and then when Carol picks it up, it's like shattered as if someone like shot a gun at it or something. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much how iPhones that's what they do when you drop them. That was accurate, at least. We're never going to get sponsored by Apple, are we? Oh well.
Well, I use an iPhone.
Oh, okay. Maybe. But yeah, I think that's intentional too. I think the product placement is intentional, as like kind of part of the humor of the show, So yes. It doesn't bother me, It's not like, it isn't like someone in Star Trek Strange New World saying Bing it, unironically. that is just sad. But this where it's like you're commenting on different things, people in different uniforms show up. That's fine.
Yeah, so I think this show is just super interesting in terms of its premise. It's certainly unique and one of a kind, and I don't think there's a huge risk with Vince Gilligan given his track record. But again, I think Apple TV goes out there and they find, prestigious people, whether that's Ben Stiller, for Severance, or Vince Gilligan, and they really just let them go kind of crazy, right? Because Better Call Saul was obviously safer because it was drifting off of Breaking Bad. This is something entirely unique with a very weird premise that could easily go entirely wrong, and maybe it will go entirely wrong, but at least the start is strong. Severance is just bizarre, right? The Apple TV Plus is taking very, I think, big and fun creative risks. Like they're swinging for the home runs,
I love it.
And that makes it much more fun to watch a lot of these shows. So I appreciate that they are spending big money to make some strange ideas happen that may not resonate with people.
I mean, I think I wish more companies did that, And again, it annoys me how like cumbersome their, software system is to navigate if you're not an Apple user. Like, because they are making a lot of great stuff over there, and so it's stuff people should be watching, but I feel like it is kind of hamstrung by the platform still a little bit.
I mean, Netflix is just far and away the king of the user interface for streaming platforms.
But I mean HBO, like I think everything is, the interface is fine. It's more the account navigation with the Apple Plus stuff that like annoys me, because again, it always wants me to use the Apple device. I'm like, I don't have one. I need an alternate method, and sometimes it's difficult, You have to like go in and if you ever want to cancel, you have to go through like a bunch of different things. Like I couldn't do it from my Android phone. The browser just like, it just wouldn't work. And so I had to like do it through a PC and like do this. It was weird. But anyway, they make good shows. I'm not going to even like finish the rest of that.
Yes. I too wish it would be easier because, like I said, I use Chromecast, which isn't an option. So what do I have to do? I have to plug a laptop in with HDMI to my TV. That's annoying.
Sure is.
That's very annoying.
Funny. That's my entire entertainment center is, I have an old laptop plugged into my TV, and then I use it as a secondary monitor, and then I have a wireless mouse and keyboard, and that's how I watch everything. Because I find that very convenient, actually. But I just use it for everything, just browser window and Netflix, what have you,
So yeah, I what would you say, DoA? I would recommend this show so far, and we'll come back, and I think there'll be some really interesting revelations at the end of season 1 because it's Vince Gilligan, because it's Apple TV Plus. I'm confident in the quality of this show, and they've done a good job of like empowering people to bring the crazy ideas and then also committing to funding the crazy idea to the very end so that people can actually plan out shows. They're not worried about what the hell is going to happen at the end of this season. So I'm cautiously optimistic about this. It definitely has a ton
the
of
first 3
potential.
episodes I think are like 10 out of 10 television. It's some of the most entertaining stuff I've watched in a while.
Yeah,
Episode 1 especially.
We
was
didn't even talk about the
fantastic.
direction, by the way, which is beautiful. Like the way this show looks. I think I really wanted to discuss this because I think Pluribus doesn't work unless everything is very realistic, right? And they absolutely kill it with because the sense of otherworldliness has to come from the strangeness of the hive mind. So everything else has to feel absolutely real, absolutely normal. We can't be doing any strange like lighting or anything like that. It just has to look like reality captured on film, and they absolutely do that, which I really appreciate.
I was talking to you before about this topic before we started recording, and one of the things I said was I really love how he creates emotion through movement. And what I mean when I say that is that you get a lot of people moving with the camera at an interesting angle, right? Where it's either, you know, like a from the ground up and you see people walking by to put things into the grocery store, right? Or you are looking down on like a ramp or something and people are walking across it. There's a lot of like horizontal movement. It's not all just like medium shots of people walking, you know, towards you or away from you horizontally. He really plays with like the Z axis as far as like where you can put the camera, and he's always done that. A lot of like extreme close-ups on objects that establish the emotional tone of the scene, like a dripping whiskey bottle or something like that. So yeah, just shot extremely well, which again, if you watch Breaking Bad, you know he's really good at that. So, you know, that nothing's changed there. In fact, I think he's gotten better at it even. So that does really help make this show work, like you're saying.
Yeah, and also just like even though there aren't crazy sci-fi elements yet, even just having the huge planes with one person, like you get a sense of scale in this show. Like this plane is absolutely, the 747 Air Force One is absolutely huge, and there's like one guy on it, right? Or just a few people. So the all of the establishing shots, all of the environment shots managed to convey a really awesome sense of loneliness in spite of the fact that the world is still full of people. You get the feeling that everything is empty, which is really a fun part of the cinematography.
Yeah,
of the
well,
show. And it reinforces the theme.
Even a good example of that is when they decide that they're just going to start turning out the lights in Albuquerque at night because nobody needs it anymore. There's no crime, so you don't need anyone really outside at all anymore. So, you know, which is freaky to her because she lives up on this hill and she sees the entire valley basically just go dark, you know? And then they're like, oh, sorry, and they keep her lights on, you know? Which almost makes it creepier because you feel even more isolated then because you don't even feel like you're in this blackout together with everybody. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Where there's this big sense of vastness and emptiness that even though, you know, a lot of the people, most of the people on Earth are still there, because you're one of these individuals that's not part of the hive mind, you feel very cut off, you know. But at the same time, you can kind of talk to anyone anytime through whoever from the hive mind is near that person too, which is kind of a cool sci-fi concept as well. So it's I mean, honestly, that's kind of an allegory for like the digital world, right? Where you're very connected to everyone at all the time, but you also can find yourself very isolated too. So I think there's a little bit of you know, allegory there too for just kind of how connected everyone is in a technological sense, but disconnected people have kind of become in a physical sense or a human sense in a way, you know?
I agree. It's a lot of interesting parallels. I think Vince Gilligan took many great concepts, such as the COVID pandemic, the rise of artificial intelligence, the digital age, and he repackaged them into this hive mind to make us think about our current world, which is what the best sci-fi does, right? And it's really, I think, a philosophically interesting show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I'm very much looking forward to seeing where it's going.
Well, we will return with more Pluribus, no doubt, at the end of the season, because we will want to discuss that 100%. We are going to hit up some Star Wars Visions Season 3, which came out recently.
Star Wars, all right, let's go.
Tentative about that.
Yeah,
for next
it's
week.
gonna. I've been outspoken against anthologies in general. But the first Visions had some interesting stuff. It wasn't all perfect, but it's fun to see a lot of different people get their shot at trying something in the Star Wars kind of universe. So I love it for that.
I see. So when it's about Star Wars, it's okay.
Not always, but in this case, yeah, it's okay in this case. Yeah, that's it though.
So in this case, the only one about Star Wars. It's
I'm a
okay.
hypocrite,
But,
Monty.
in all other anthologies,
Plug me into the hive mind. I'm ready.
I'm an anthology. I'm an anthology enthusiast.
I know,
as we know.
yeah.
So I will be enjoying this. And we'll see you next week to discuss that. Till then.